So number one, a sign that I think is pretty clear that you're not ready to retire is that you are struggling to pay your current bills, right? If you are struggling to pay your current bills, then that means that you have bigger issues than just getting ready to retire, right? That means your current income is not enough to cover the bills that you pay, right? And it probably also means that you are heavily in debt, but we'll talk about that here in a moment, right? But if you're struggling to pay your current bills, what makes you think that the nest egg that you have can come in and create income enough to pay those current bills as well, right? We need margin in our budget. And I talked about this earlier this week. In retirement, you need margin in your budget. You need enough space between your income and your expenses, right? That as your income may stay the same and your expenses increase, you can continue to maintain the standard of living in retirement that you want to live, right? But if you allow your expenses to creep up or your expenses start too close to your income, then you can be running at a deficit in retirement, and that can push you towards higher debt levels, and it can push you towards not being comfortable in retirement. So keep that in mind. And if you're struggling to pay your bills before retirement, get those under control before you ever touch any type of retirement income or ever quit the job that you are currently working. Okay. Then the second sign that you are not prepared financially to retire is that you have a high level of debt. What do I say all the time? I say all the time that debt is a strain on your cash flow, right? And if something is a strain on your cash flow, meaning it's eating away at your cash flow, right? Then you don't want to go into retirement and just have this strain on your cash flow eat away at the cash flow from your nest egg, right? You want that cash flow from your nest egg to go towards your needs and then go towards your wants, right? You don't need it to go towards debt payments, basically being thrown in the trash and of no utility to you, right? You want the money that you pull off your nest egg to be useful and not just go towards interest and not just go towards some nice car that you absolutely don't need or paying on credit cards at 20% or whatever it may be, right? So if you can keep your debt levels low and eventually get rid of them, and especially if you can get rid of your mortgage, right? If you can get rid of your mortgage, that's a really, really good sign that you are on the right track towards retirement, right? But if you're sitting around with credit card bills and car notes and student loans still, and you think that you're getting ready to retire, that should not be the case. You need to clean up your debts before you ever think about retiring, right? If you haven't worked the financial action plan, you know that I tell you to get out of debt before you ever start investing in a meaningful way, right? But a lot of people don't do that, and they may have a good nest egg, but that nest egg doesn't need to get eaten away at by the fact that you have high debt levels. So avoid that by getting out of debt before you jump into retirement. Okay. Now, the third sign that you are not financially prepared to retire is that you have no plan for future major expenses. Okay. What are future major expenses? Well, one, we always need to have an emergency fund because heat and air can go out in your home or wherever you live, right? You can get into a car accident and it's your fault and you have to pay a deductible, right? You may need a new car. You may need to go and buy a new car. And we don't want to go into debt to purchase a new car. We want to be able to, purchase that big expense in cash, right? And if you have no plan for this, if you have no plan for the fact that things like this can occur, then you're going to eat away at your nest egg even faster. If you see a particular pattern here between these different signs that you're not ready to retire, all these signs are based on the fact that they would eat away at your nest egg. And we want things to eat away at your nest egg as little as possible as we go through this list. We want things to, especially anything that can be expected and anything that can be forecasted, we want to be able to plan for it. We want to be able to know that if something bad were to happen, especially in a reasonable amount, we could take care of it without having to eat away at our nest egg in any type of meaningful way. So have a plan. Have a plan for if major things occur, what you were going to do about it. And if you go into retirement and you need to buff up your emergency fund a little bit, absolutely do so. That is fine, right? But if you don't have a plan for other things like, a car or, if you're going to move or, moving expenses, these different types of things, then you could be left in financial trouble while you are in retirement, which is not a good place to be. A fourth sign that you are not prepared to retire financially is that you don't know what your Social Security benefit is going to be. You don't know when you're going to take it. You don't know what you're going to do with this. Now, this kind of works two ways, okay? Because if you have plenty of nest egg and you're living with plenty of margin in your budget, then knowing about your Social Security benefit is not a huge deal, right? Because that's just going to be icing on the cake for you. But if your retirement depends on the fact that you are also going to receive the Social Security benefit on top of whatever other income you're creating from the nest egg that you have, right? Then you need to know what that benefit is going to be, and you need to know when you are going to take it. That way you can plan properly for retirement, because if you retire before you can take it, then you're going to be running at a deficit. Or if you retire and it's not as much as you thought it was going to be, then you're going to be running at a deficit, right? So we need to be understanding of what our Social Security benefit is going to be and when we plan on taking it. But again, if you have a huge nest egg and you're just living off of that, that is not a huge deal, okay? Then number 5 sign that you are not financially prepared to retire is that you have no monthly financial plan, right? Or no budget, right? We need a unique monthly budget even in retirement. I don't care how long you've been dealing with your own personal finances. You have to create a unique monthly budget every single month. So you can do 2 things, right? So you can track your expenses and understand where your money is going, right? And then to know how much income is coming in, where that income is coming from, and if that income is fixed or increasing or whatever it may be. Right? We need to know where our income and expenses are. That way we can know the amount of margin that we have between the two. And like I've said before, in retirement, you need to create as much margin as possible. That way, as your relatively fixed income stays the same and expenses continue to rise, you can have enough room to continue living the financial life that you want to live in retirement. Then a 6th sign that you are not prepared to retire financially is that you don't have a long-term plan. Now, what's a long-term plan look like? Well, a long-term plan can look like any number of things, but specifically a plan for yourself as you age and a plan for what happens when you pass away, right? If you don't have wills, power of attorney documents, maybe even trusts, if you don't have some type of plan for your long-term care, whether it be just cash flowing it with the nice nest egg you have, or buying long-term care insurance, whatever that is going to look like for you. If you don't have a plan for those things, then you are ill prepared for retirement. Then the 7th thing that shows me that you are not financially prepared to retire is that you don't account for inflation. And I talked about this a moment ago when you're talking about your expenses and knowing that retirement is a number, it's not an age, right? Then you need to take inflation into account. Inflation is a real big buzzword right now because we are seeing inflation in our current economy, right? But as the prices of goods and services go up, and your income stays the same, I keep saying this, right? Because it's going to happen. It's going to happen if you're, retired for, 30 years and you make the exact same income for 30 years, right? Well, the margin that you have over your expenses is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, no matter the size of the inflation. No matter if inflation is 2% or 4%, inflation is going to eat away at the value of your money, and you must understand that and be able to take into account what inflation might be when you are making your expectations of the money that you should take out every single month. Then an 8th sign that you are not prepared to retire is that you do not know where your income is coming from in your retirement portfolio. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean, what's going to create the income that you're going to live on? Are you just going to sell shares of stock that you already own or mutual funds that you own? Are you going to purchase dividend-paying stocks or dividend-paying mutual funds and ETFs that you're going to live off of the dividends that they create? Are you going to buy bonds or bond funds that are going to provide interest enough for you to live on? What are you going to do in order to create the income that you need to create? Are you going to buy rental real estate that's going to pay some income to you in the form of rents? What are you going to do? If you don't know how you're going to create the income, you just know you have the number that you need, right? Then you're still not prepared. You need to know how the income is going to come to you and in what form, how often. That way you can budget and plan effectively.